everyone. So Carol Lighthall here. I know most of you. Thanks for being here. So we have a get-together for about an hour's time. I appreciate you being here. Just from my notes, I think you're all very interested in being here because the governor's cabinet is here, right? So just about 30 days, it's kind of ironic we're here in this room, kind of looking out the window. Everybody, I'm sure, has seen, burned into your minds like it is for me, the Chamber of Commerce building covered with mud, this whole parking lot flooded. That was just over 30 days ago. So when I came here on Tuesday to look at my office, there were huge piles of mud and dirt, and it was unbelievable that we could look even this good in such a short amount of time. So kudos to everybody for pitching in on that. And in general, somebody that came in commented on the collaboration they feel, people working together. That's exactly right. You know, when resources are limited, it really requires that kind of collaboration and innovation. The hard-hit areas of Chemo Valley is 12 towns. Of those 12 towns, Londonderry, Weston, Cavendish, Plymouth, Mount Holly, and Ludlow were especially hard hit. And as I said, this plaza, Ludlow, was very much ground zero. Today we're going to highlight some collaborations and tell you stories about how people were affected, how businesses were affected. In a short amount of time, we were able to stand up a disaster relief fund. That was 3 days in. We raised over $200,000. Now there's committee members in the room, and I would just ask them to raise their hands. Few people? Yep, there's a couple people here. The committee has approved $50,000 in a partnership with Crown Point Board of Realtors to respond to individual needs. We'll tell you more about this program in just a minute. We also, at present, have applications, business applications in process, grants of up to $10,000 for disaster damage. So far, we have 27 applications for over $250,000.
Would you bring me?
And that represents $3.5 million in total costs for those 27 businesses. Another partner that was instrumental just in that disaster fund was Ludlow Area Rotary, and that was for being a fiscal agent and just a great partner to help us get some important work done. I'm going to turn that over to Tom Ray, who's the president of Ludlow Rotary, to talk about the work they're doing.
All right, thanks a lot, Carol. I really do appreciate everybody being here, and I can't wait to hear your stories about what the community is going through. So I just spend just a couple minutes here giving you an idea of what Rotary is involved with. And maybe for context, I was made the president on July 1st, thinking, boy, easy sailing, right? 10 days later, my life here as president of Rotary changed quite substantially. But so far, Ludlow Area Rotary has spent or committed to spend almost $100,000 of funds raised as a result of this disaster, as well as pulling from our own coffers from our charitable fund. A few things we've done, you know, our members are very active. They're very community conscious. We had people going to the Home Depot to buy dehumidifiers and fans the day after the flood, which were distributed through the community center. And we've sent some money actually already to the Black River Action Team, which we know is doing some tremendous work in trying to clean up our waterways. We also are coordinating, so in terms of this $100,000, we're coordinating with the Chamber's efforts as well as with the Crown Point Board of Realtors, because they have mechanisms set up to be able to identify appropriate recipients of funds, and we thought we would leverage that, those two organizations to do that. And again, our focus in Rotary is on our service area, and we would like our funds to go to the people in our service area, the communities here that were directly impacted by the flooding. We are expecting a lot of additional contributions. We've received contributions from a number of other Rotary clubs, and we are actively accepting contributions, and we most likely will continue to fund those or get those out to the community in the ways in which I have mentioned. And finally, I'd just like to say, again, hat tip to our Rotary members who are so active in the community. Many have come out to help people in the immediate aftermath of the flooding. And I think you can continue to see Rotary members out in the community.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I highlighted how money has gone out to individuals. And that was the disaster relief fund that the chamber was involved in. We're not set up necessarily to provide assistance directly. And so we worked with the Crown Point Board of Realtors to get money out quickly, efficiency. They've done it before and they've done an amazing job. Joe Carl will talk about that, what that looked like, how the funds flowed, and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the rainy Ludlow. As Carol said, Joe Carl, I'm a Crown Point board member and I'm a director of that board. And thank you to Okemo Valley Chamber. Basically, I'm going to explain what we've done to help get the funds out to the community. One little point that's kind of important is our Okemo Valley sends some of the highest tax revenues from property taxes, rooms and meals, transfer taxes. We would really appreciate if some of that money could come back to our community because we're really hurting right now. There are several local organizations that have done an incredible job raising awareness of funds and helping our community. Some of the key organizations are the Okemo Valley Chamber. We know the Ludlow Rotary Club, Okemo Mountain School, and the Crown Point Board of Realtors, and there's many more. All the funds were pulled, as Carol had said, and they decided to use us as boots on the ground for support and distribution of funds. Carol mentioned we were used after Irene, and that seemed to work out well. So we stepped up to the plate, formed a committee for flood relief amongst our Crown Point board members. And our board is not huge. It's 85 members of real estate agents in the surrounding community. And we met, we developed a form quickly. We got the form out to the public. We personally met or know the individuals that passed the forms in. That was kind of key, that we didn't get flooded with forms that may have been faulty or corrupt or what have you. So we ended up with 90 individuals and families who were suffering from losses. And I worry that we missed quite a few more, to be honest. We did the best we can, but I know there's more people out there hurting. Once the forms were collected, we sorted by town and level of need. We poured over the forms and discovered far greater needs than originally thought. Many had unmet financial needs ranging from a few thousand to hundreds of thousands. A common theme was lost personal items, tools, mechanical systems for heat and hot water, water systems, so no potable drinking water for many families, major electrical issues with housing, destroyed driveways, and massive debris removal costs. And that's only from the 90 forms that we collected. So that doesn't really include the many second homeowners. We tried to focus on primary homeowners. There's dozens and dozens of second homeowners that are in need as well. So any future funds are really welcome. It doesn't end with helping local and second homeowners. We have local businesses that are suffering. We know the governor visited the area after the flood, and I'm sure one can see tremendous progress. And that's a shout out to all the volunteers. So many people came together. It was amazing. What you don't see is the economic suffering of businesses that give life to our surrounding Vermont towns. Driving around, it seems things are getting back to normal, but I beg to differ. Yes, the community has done a tremendous job. However, if you look deeper, there are still many homes that don't have hot water And with winter approaching, they don't have heat. Many homes have lost cars, their driveways worse, some have no homes at all. It was heart-wrenching to review the forms and see so many families and individuals in such dire need. Many folks didn't have insurance, or their policies literally just didn't cover that type of flood. Thank you for coming down and visiting, and we need your help. And, you know, everybody still is going to pitch in. I know Troy's got a fundraiser on Saturday. Get the word out on that, and thank you.
Thank you. Very nicely put. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we have a few businesses lined up to just tell you how their business was affected by the disaster, and having people tell the stories that they've directly touched, like Joe did, really is illuminating for me, and I hope for you too. And so, because we can put it on an application, add the numbers and that kind of thing, and something gets lost in the translation. And so, Peggy Campney, would you come up and talk a bit? So this is Green Mountain Fireplace Specialties. If it's both of you, that's okay. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm Peggy Campney. This is my husband, Arnie, and we own Green Mountain Fireplace Specialties next door. We were really surprised by the flood. We didn't realize the rain was going to come. We were actually out of town and woke up that morning to finding out that our warehouse space was flooded and we had lost our service van and some of our inventory. Then we saw the pictures of the marketplace and were just devastated. We lost 50 different fireplaces and stoves that we had in inventory. We lost our service van, and of course, revenue for the last 2 months, along with all the other businesses in town. And about 5 to 6 weeks of cleanup with all of our guys. And if you go to our Facebook page, you can see pictures of them shoveling mud and trying to get through all that. So it's been a very emotional month and a half or so.
It has. And we really appreciate all the help from the local people, our business friends and our family that have stepped up to help us. There's been a tremendous outpouring in Ludlow, and we appreciate that. I think there's still a lot of people out there that are in worse shape than we are. We definitely are thankful that we were able to retain enough of our inventory and equipment to continue operation. We don't rely on foot traffic, so our business was not as affected as much as a business like Bob's or, you know, somebody that, or Tigart, somebody that really depends on the foot traffic to come in. Although it was devastating, we lost a lot. We're confident that we'll be able to move forward and regroup. And just want to thank everybody that was a part of you know, the effort to bring it all back.
We look forward to rebuilding again next door. We're in the process of getting
How
that
long
together.
before you reopen, do you think?
At least 2 months, probably.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
And you've had, I'm not sure you were clear about the number of locations that you were affected. Your storage in Proctorsville,
Was
the
flooded.
store here, and then a
And then we had a storage unit over here that was flooded too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a family business. Troy Caruso is around here somewhere. There you are. Come on up. So Troy has a few businesses, and he won't be shy about telling his story, will you?
I guess not.
Somebody's gonna
Where do you want me
it.
to start? We have, you know, a ton of damages to the restaurants, the golf course, multiple buildings in town.
Start with what you have for business in Ludlow area, Troy.
We have Fox Rung, the golf course, restaurant Calcutta's, Sam's, Darcy's, Off the Rails across the street, and out the Tuscan Grill around the corner.
And the motel?
Motel, yeah, motel was not damaged, thank God, but.
Yep. So just from there, just talk about the damages you've experienced and that kind of thing. Costs, numbers.
Probably total in all locations, at least $1.5 million minimum in damages. Between the golf course and the restaurant, Sam's is done. That's a total washout. Darcy's was salvageable. Probably a couple of $100,000 there. Golf course we had up and running within 3-4 days with the rain, washed out creeks, washed out roads, some water in Calcutta's in the basement level in the locker rooms. And we've gutted that 4 feet high all the way around, rebuilding that now. The nail and hair salon over by Alta, was damage in there. It's endless amount of damage, really.
Endless amount of damage. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Troy, when he said he was going to be here, he said, I'm going to be all dirty. And I know he's the guy running the Bobcat to clean the road or, work on roads. And he's done that for citizens in the community as well.
Yeah, I've just been trying to help out whoever needs help. I talked to Brandon, the town manager, what does he need? Stuff at the park, people's houses, driveways filled in. Angela from the fire department's giving me a bunch of different missions, and pretty much anybody we can help while we're helping ourselves is what we're trying to accomplish.
We saved our rec field here. The highway department was resource constrained and was working on other things, and the town manager over there, Brendan, called him, and he redirected a river that would have ruined the ball fields that the kids play on here and that. So the town owes you a great debt, Troy. We appreciate having you as a neighbor and a partner in the town, because you've done a great job.
Thank you. You don't owe me anything, believe me. I'm happy to help. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A couple more people. So Eliza and Justin own 2 businesses on Main Street. Justin's also a select board member here in town. You want to come up, Justin? Sure. Please.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you folks down from Montpelier or wherever you live in this beautiful state. Yeah, what can I say that hasn't already been said? We all saw news outlets here the next day interviewing us, filming us, trying to assess the damage. I was getting calls from friends in New Zealand, in Australia, in Mexico, California, the UK, all telling me that we were on national news, homestyle. So it was crazy thing to experience. Second major catastrophic flood in 12 years. So yeah, damage is extensive. We hope to be open Labor Day. We've been working very, very hard. The community came together almost as well as you could ever have imagined. From Crown Point Board of Realtors to the Chamber of Commerce to private citizens to the town manager and the select board to the village folks, all the emergency workers. Everybody pulled their weight, the excavating companies. So we all came together, we're rebuilding, but the damage, as you can see, is quite extensive. And thank God our dams held up. We're looking at a huge dam project here in the next coming years. So Ludlow's on course to tackle these problems of flash flooding, hopefully once and for all, but it's going to require state assistance, federal assistance, and the community still banding together. So I appreciate your cabinet's time. I hope you guys can drive around and see how much progress has been made, and then also look back on the news reports on how devastating it truly was. Thank you guys for all coming in today, and we'll get through this all together. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one more business speaking, and then we'll do Q&A, and I think Secretary Curley is going to help with that, please. And so Donna and Glenn Heightsmith and the Timber Inn, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Hi.
Thank you, Donna.
I'm Donna.
I'm Glenn.
I'm Glenn.
Okay,
We don't even know where to start.
this is our 3rd flood since Irene. But before I do that, I just want to say that I was president of the Rotary Club during 9/11. And also I want to say that it wasn't, I guess it was when I was 14 and I contemplated, like running away from home and becoming homeless. Never thought that I'd be homeless at 62, and that's how old I am. And my home got wrecked by this flood.
Very badly.
Troy, I don't know how you're going to come up with $1.5 million to fix your losses. Ours are definitely at least $700,000 or so. But I think the most important thing to say here today is that if you're going to try to do a FEMA buyout, have a lot of patience. After the April 15th, 2019 flood, Donna and I applied for a FEMA buyout, and it wasn't until, 2 days after the flood that we got word that from FEMA that it looked like our buyout is going to go on. However, FEMA operates under its own rules, and we've been told that it could be another 6 months, 8 months,
A year.
or maybe Vermont's emergency management person, Stephanie Rice, is that her name?
Stephanie Smith.
Stephanie Smith, no relation, said that it could be a month or two. I would just say you got to be patient, but we need all the help we can get. This town needs all the help we can get. Divided we fall. We got to stay united on this. I'm sorry that the governor's not here. I don't know if the cabinet members here represent Vermont's emergency management faculty, VEM. And if you do, I think you need to staff up. Because there seems to be some disconnect, perhaps, or if it's VEM that works for FEMA, administers a FEMA buyout, let's see it happen. Let's see it happen quicker. Whatever has to happen quickly. Winter's coming. We're on our third home right now.
We've lost our house.
Yeah.
We've lost our primary sense of our primary income. And our application has been in since 2019. And we just don't understand why things are not happening a little quicker at this point. It had been delayed and delayed and delayed. We've done all that we can do to get all of the information that we need in. And we don't understand why at this point that they can't move this along for us. We just need help. We need help.
We all need help.
We all need help. We want to help everyone. We do. We honestly do. But we also, this is the third time and we are homeless and businessless.
Our dog too.
So,
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry to make it so personal, but.
No, that's what's
Yeah.
important.
There is one thing I wanted to add, and I see that the town manager is here. So over in Woodstock, they're ponying up money for town employees and those who work in the town who couldn't get to work because there was no water in Woodstock. I think that the town of Ludlow needs to do something like that too, because I think there were probably employees that couldn't work for a while, and I don't know if they've got assistance through other means, but I think Woodstock is setting a good precedent there. And so there are select board members here and there's town managers. So let's get some money out there. Thank you.
So I'd like to put a positive spin on that, and there just isn't one. There's not one. And you guys come to town and come to the region, and I realize, and I understand the state's budget, considerations, and it's just a tough situation. Just keep us in your thoughts. And if there's a good, a good suggestion for us, by all means, we're all worker bees and we're going to make it happen. So we will do at least half of what needs to be done ourselves. And so we're not asking for miracles, though one would be appreciated right about now. And let's turn it over to Secretary Curley for Q&A. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for sharing your story. I'm really sorry for what you are all enduring. These stories are so heartbreaking, and at the same time, it's so inspiring to see how communities have come together to help each other. Our governor asked our team to come together and come through the community today. He has been through, but we're trying to spread our resources around to make sure we are seeing. There are so many people around the state that are struggling to get through this. But again, we're going to keep coming through and being here for you. And really, I want to open it up for question and answer, but I also wanted to just take a really quick moment to say that there are some resources. They're not enough, especially the stories that I've just heard, but want to make sure that folks are applying for our business assistance grant that we have through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. This is for damages, physical damages that you have for businesses. This was a gap that we identified. We know that FEMA, albeit slow, will help with personal loss, but as far as businesses, there was definitely a gap. So that doesn't mean that SBA disaster isn't there for you as well, but recognizing some people may or may not qualify for a loan or be able to get a loan for some reason or another. But I wanted to be sure that you applied. We're understanding some folks haven't applied yet for our grant because they were waiting for estimates. And my encouragement to you would be get in the queue, even if your estimates aren't perfect at this point, even if they're a little bit of your own estimates, get in the queue, get in line, because if we need better estimates, we'll let you know that, but at least you'll be in the queue and in the line, because any grants you can get, obviously, you don't have to pay back. That's going to be really helpful to you. So I just wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention the SBA. Some people are anxious about taking on more debt, but if you do apply for a SBA loan and can get that loan, it's no interest, no payments for 1 year. So you could always get started and get some of those repairs going, and then using the grants that you get, you can pay those back as well. So I just wanting to mention that. A couple of women you might have just seen came in and left. They're with the Vermont SBDC. The Vermont SBDC is a really great resource to business owners who are struggling to try to decide whether they should. But some folks are wondering, do I reopen my doors? Do I take on more debt? How do I do this? They're a really great resource. They've been around a long time. They are in the region. They just said they were headed to meet with another business owner. So I would just encourage you to, utilize those resources. And if you're not sure what the resources are, reach out to our agency at accd.vermont.gov, and we will point you in the right direction. Sorry, I'm kind of looking over there. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. So with that, if there are questions, and it can be business related, it can be, we have a whole cabinet full of folks with a variety of expertise. We can try to answer your questions. Jason, yes.
I'm sorry that we have to use the microphone. It seems unnecessarily formal. I'm Jason Gibbs again, the governor's chief of staff. Is it the Smiths?
Hyde Smith.
Hyde Smiths. 2019, that's bullshit. Like, we have got to figure that out. We have, I'm sorry about that. But
We like that.
we have, one of the reasons that the governor asked us to spread the team across the field is because we know that there are a tremendous number of gaps being identified in this phase of recovery. So as a state, our responsibility, as directed by the governor, is to be first as supportive as we can be in the emergency response. And then we transition to what has been for the last few weeks, a focus on both emergency response, because up until recently we've been dealing with landslides and some other essential repair of infrastructure and that sort of thing, and recovery. I said earlier, it's a terrible metaphor, but it's like you have 1 foot in 2 different canoes. One's on response and one's on recovery. Now we're really getting into the full recovery canoe, and we know that there's this huge number of gaps being identified. Now that we're several weeks into the nuts and bolts of response, now that major debris removal is wrapping up. And so we're spreading our executives. I mean, some of these folks introduce themselves as being from departments, and I want to be clear, they run the departments. And and so the governor said, like, look, get out into the field, do two things. One, make sure we are really getting the information that we need to be as supportive as possible. Make sure that we know what we need to know in order to be by your side as you go through this process, not in your way, not on your back. Make sure those lines of communication are open. You have, I think, about half of the senior most members of the administration in the room right now. The second thing is more nuts and bolts tactical. What are the things that we need to do right now, today, or over the next few days to move from point A where we are today to point B where we want to be tomorrow, so that we're all continuing to move forward. And the only way for us to know that the information that we're receiving through our established systems of communication, which by most reports are working well, now they're not perfect, through your local EMD and other resources, is to have these connections. So as we get into like the Q&A section, you can ask us the big picture stuff, but know that we're also here to like hear about situations like this where like we don't control FEMA, but we know people on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue. And we can, we can see what we can do about getting you an answer. That just seems like it's astounding to me.
It's astounding.
And
It really is.
like whether it's yes or no, for it to take 3.5 years, like seems really ridiculous.
We tried to avoid this
and
from happening again.
Point totally taken. The other thing is how understanding your circumstance helps us understand how to accelerate the process for everybody else. And one of the things that the governor said to me a few days ago was, hey, we got to start to understand how to accelerate buyouts. Because he, of course, was lieutenant governor during Irene. I mean, we didn't close out our last Irene project until Governor Scott was elected, had already been in office for 4 or 5 years. Like that seems unacceptable to operations, people who run businesses, people trying to put their lives together, certainly from operations people like us who just want to get done. Sorry, that's too, hopefully there's no swear
We'll
jar
find
here.
him.
There is one in our office and it's because of me. So seriously, true story. So I just wanted to lay out that context here. So if you're thinking about asking one type of question, but now you're like, hey, I do have this problem that maybe these knuckleheads can help me solve, like that we can do, that we can try to work on those things too. We have a team of, we have a bunch of teammates here taking copious notes so that we are sure to follow up with folks. And if you don't hear back from us on something that you raised, you can call me or you can call Secretary Curley. That's why we're here. So with that.
Okay, there's kids coming in, so we're gonna clean up? No, I'm just
Yes,
kidding.
ma'am.
All right, no worries. All right, first question.
So I'm driving around the various towns, I see regular roads, the backcountry roads with ditches and the culverts are shot. I mean, they'll be repairing roads up until the snow flies. Is there assistance to the towns and money to speed that up? First question. The second question is, I would say come Labor Day, is the state planning on doing any marketing to say, come to Vermont, spend your money, buy Christmas gifts, and
Yes.
ramp that up to the foliage? Because we need the tourists to come back up, and maybe they're too scared to do it.
I'll take the transportation one. I'll stand in for Secretary Flynn. Provided the municipalities are communicating to us through the EMD to the State Emergency Operations Center that they have additional unmet municipal road runs, or communicating to us through their AOT district that they have additional needs, we do have the capacity within AOT to help speed up some of those municipal road repair projects. The longer term funding question, like the longer term culvert replacement, that is something that we are going to have to work with the legislature to figure out over the course of the winter. But in terms of immediate repairs, AOT does, now that a majority of the state infrastructure that required emergency repair has been stabilized, and we are now settling into what our project management portfolio looks for, like the big bridge replacements and some of the other longer term efforts. We do have some capacity that we can apply to helping municipalities. So a mixed bag there. We should be able to get a lot of that, help get a lot of that work done in impacted communities before the frost. Some of the bigger stuff that's going to require longer term funding effort we're going to have to sort out in January.
You know, Jason, one of the things that we're concerned about in this town is that the fixes are good fixes. You know, we had to open up the roads, we had to do some things, and so there's some temporary fixes that went in. And for those of us that were here in Irene, we saw it happen then, and then we're seeing some of the same problems. Regional stormwater management, you know, our drainage ditches, culverts, all of those kind of things that don't get a lot of attention. You know, the roads are being slapped together right now, but having long-term fixes so we don't have these roads collapsing again in the future and ending up, you know, all downstream. That's so important for us to take a look at. So not only to get us open and working, but to build it back in such a way that, you know, we mitigate some of these problems in the future, because, you know, we've had our second 100-year flood in 12 years.
We couldn't possibly agree more. We have a chief recovery officer who's on a different assignment today. I'm sure you'll get to connect with him at some point. But we are absolutely settling in for a multi-year recovery effort that would include the preventive and mitigation work that you're talking about, so that we can continue to further reduce risk. And this is not, these communities are not the same, but I said in an earlier meeting, recently I was in Quechee and dropped into the Simon Pierce building because I couldn't believe it was still structurally, honest to God. I had seen friends of mine who live in that area sent me some videos of the night of July 10th, and the amount of force pounding that building was like mind-blowing to me. And so we were driving through and I was like, we have to see, like, I have to see this. And there was evidence of flooding, but it was just this unbelievable reminder that it may not be the best use of dollars, or it may not be the wisest thing, but it is absolutely possible to be flood resilient. I mean, that building is almost 150 years old. And so we totally get it. One sort of ray of optimism, before the flood, it's important to remember that before the flood, we were moving a historic amount of infrastructure investment through our state administrative system into local communities for roads, bridges, climate mitigation, and flood mitigation. All of that money is still in the pipeline. It's still going to move forward, and now we're working to make sure that it is invested smartly and as effectively as possible in the hardest hit communities, because you all just experienced, lots of people just experienced the reminder of why that investment we thought necessary in the first place. So totally 100% get it. I want to make sure Lindsay has a chance to talk about the economic messaging.
Sure. So as Jason mentioned, as soon as we could put our one foot in the recovery canoe, our agency was pivoting to start to think about the marketing and the message to get folks here to bring them back. I'm going to turn the floor over to Nate Formulari from our agency to tell you a little bit about what we're doing to make that pivot to help you out there.
Yeah, well, I think it's a couple things. Nate Formulari with the Agents of Commerce. I also work closely with the Department of Tourism, which is in our agency. We never turned our marketing off as a result of this flood. We did pivot in the immediate wake to say, these roads are closed, don't go down this road, that kind of thing. But we never turned off our national campaign. So that's always running. It's still running. It's summer, and it's transitioning to fall right now. Additionally, we said, we need more. So we have hired a creative agency. They are putting together some creative now, and we're going to kind of supplement our seasonal campaigns with this additional kind of come back to Vermont as a result of the flood. With this, we're able to target folks that we know have been to Vermont or already have shown an interest in Vermont. So our national campaign can catch people that have never been here, never experienced us. So we're going to try to reach those people that already have an affinity to this place. Remind them that you folks are here, your businesses are here. And that campaign with any luck, we'll have billboards up by Labor Day weekend. And then we'll stretch, I know billboards aren't the most effective marketing, but it's something happening quickly. And then we'll extend that through the fall into the winter. So I might also, I know Secretary Tevez is working on some of this stuff as well, so I don't know. Yeah. So.
Oh, yes, microphone.
So, yes, so we're going to supplement what tourism and AC Commerce is doing as well. And it's going to be a campaign that's going to be focused on Vermont voices. So it's going to be Vermonters inviting visitors to come to Vermont, authentic stories. We're open, we're ready for business, and it won't be polished, but it'll be real, it'll be authentic, and there'll be some interactive messaging as well. Maybe some contests. Maybe we need a My Vermont drink to get us through this, and that could be a maple milkshake. That could be a hard drink or spirits. But it's all going to be, and we're, as Nate says, we're going to be targeting right around Labor Day. Get it going. And at some point, I would love, as we build this out, to come back here. We have a couple people on our team that have experience in video, maybe interview and be part of that, welcoming people back to Vermont. We are open for business. We are ready to serve you like we've always done in the hospitality business. So,
if I could interject too, so as the one of the main marketers for Okemo Valley, the Chamber of Commerce, and I really appreciate hearing all of this. So we're telling you about the disaster and the effects now, but simultaneously, like you, 2 feet, not in the same canoe, in different canoes, right? So we have more businesses open than not open. We have we're open for business blog. Our magazine is going out unfettered. We will be at Big E. You'll be there, I'm sure, in September. We're going with tourism to New York in October. And so anything like that, we'd be all over as well.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I just want to, I started keep beating this drum, but I just also want to mention that our tourism and marketing commissioner has taken national media interviews, and she has been saying repeatedly, the best thing that you can do for Vermont right now is to come to Vermont. Yes. So I just, I hope folks know that our messaging has been continue to come to Vermont, because we know we're open, right? And so we're not sending anybody away. Yeah.
2 questions, 1 comment really about the BGAP process.
Oh, yes.
It's a fairly cumbersome application. I finished it 2 weeks ago, but one thing was I couldn't attach the attachments you wanted because mine were too big.
Oh,
So
okay.
you ask for my tax return, it's 30 pages long. I got up to about 8 pages, and there's no room for additional attachments to comments.
Okay.
So then secondly, what's the timeline for disbursement on that?
So actually, folks are going to be seeing money inside the next week, probably the next few days. Did you happen to try the email? There's a call center email link. Did you happen to try that? Because you could arguably through that send attachments, but I hope you at least got your application in. Okay, perfect. But I will take that feedback to them. So, but if you have not received they either haven't received your application yet, if you haven't heard anything back, or it's good news if you're not getting a response that you need more information. So they're still getting through a lot of them. We've had a lot of help from other agencies that have sent folks over, but I'll take the feedback about needing a bigger, actually, we might have someone in the room that can help us with that, bigger file capabilities. So that's good to know.
Noted.
Already in 3 different formats, and finally just gave up and said there's 7 pages.
Oh, that was smart.
21.
One more thing I'll just share is that we have tried to be really flexible and reasonable in this process, because a lot of people have lost documentation. So we've tried to be as reasonable as we can be, and I just hope you all have my back when our auditor comes for me.
And he will.
But at any rate, we're really trying to make it as easy as possible, but we still have to ask for this information and have it documented so that when they do come looking at it, we have something to show. So.
We're also super sensitive to the fact that VGAP does not, in its current form, come even close to meeting the need. It is at this point still emergency gap focused, but we are working very diligently in the administration, with the treasurer, with others, to find ways to direct more funding into that program, because it is very flexible and it is meant to meet like these emergency gap needs.
I have a question. Ludlow was built, as most agrarian communities, right on a river. So we can expect this is probably going to be a consistent issue moving forward. Out of all the tax dollars that this town particularly raises, what would the appetite be with the current cabinet to have Ludlow keep some of those funds to put towards infrastructure?
Yeah, I can tell you with the governor, it would be okay. You're talking specifically about property tax revenue, I'm guessing.
Yes.
But maybe even some sales and income tax revenue, I don't know. The governor is very open to what the state would view as a tax revenue expenditure policy for impacted communities, particularly if it went toward something like flood resilience, long-term recovery. I have to tell you, the legislature has left itself very, very little, if not zero room to sacrifice tax revenue or to divert tax revenue from its intended purpose, whatever it is they've appropriated it toward, back to its source. And as we all know, as Vermonters, there's not a huge amount of new tax revenue being generated, revenue capacity. There's not a lot of economic growth occurring in most parts of Vermont. So we, as an administration, would be very open to that conversation. The challenge is going to end up being in the legislature.
I'll do a two-parter if I may. We don't have a local option tax currently. It's being discussed in its infancy now. It's actually failed twice before. Vermont takes 30% of that, 33% of that local option tax. What, if any, instances are there where the town could either adopt a new surplus tax that is kept in the town or divert that 30% of local options?
That is a fantastic tax policy question, and I know Secretary Clauser wants to take it on. Here's the most important thing that I can add to this is tax policy flexibility is something this administration and this governor is very willing to consider, but in order to implement it, we cannot do it administratively. We have to have legislative support. And when we start talking about tax revenue expenditures, which is the legislature's way of saying they're taking money, tax money, and giving it back to taxpayers, or directing it toward incentives to tax revenue expenditure, they don't have a lot of room to move because we have consumed so much of the existing tax capacity. We can't raise that revenue someplace else. So it's a difficult conversation to have with the legislature that values revenue over results.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just, Jason threw it to me and then he took my answer.
Oh, sorry.
But that too is controlled by the legislature. However, those are those types of kind of out of the box ideas are things that our tax department loves, and they can run data on it and make those types of proposals. So those ideas are really helpful. They would need the legislature to actually make that a reality for folks, but those types of ideas are incredibly helpful because it's the type of stuff that we can look at and really get some data around and see what impact that would have and potentially make a pitch.
And that type of revenue flexibility for a municipality increases your ability to leverage this historic amount of infrastructure money. So I talked about, to put it into context, infrastructure spending is going to double over the next 4 years. And across the board, roads and bridges.
Federal level.
Yes, this is from the ARPA, that's the pandemic recovery, and then there's IIJA, which is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Then there's IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act. So you put all that stuff together, it is cumulatively about the same size of investment as what we experienced as a country after the Great Depression. It's almost as significant as the New Deal. And for Vermont, it will be the largest cumulative public works project in our history. So and the more flexibility communities have, and in particular, communities that have been impacted by the flood, to build on or enhance those investments, the more resilient we're going to end up being as a result of the money that's being deployed.
Thank you.
Other questions, other challenges over
How do
here?
you determine which applications to work on?
For your business.
For a BGAP or for you?
For businesses.
So you're not gonna love my
First in, first
well, the
out.
BGAP is a first in, first out, so to speak. That being said, so I would go for the grants, definitely, but I would personally, if I were a business owner still, I would apply for the SBA loan. You can always decline it if you didn't want to take it, but get in there and that way, if you decided you wanted it, you have, they're telling us that once somebody's approved, they're seeing the cash, the money in 2 weeks. So, and like I said, it's no interest, no payments for the first year. And if you end up with grants, then you can pay it back with those grants. The other thing I wanted to mention is I had a conversation with DoorDash yesterday and Tuesday, and they have grants for $10,000, even if you don't use DoorDash. They want to help. They want to come into these communities. They're working with Hawaii right now as well. And so restaurant owners are able to apply and you go right on. We're going to actually put something on our website on accd.vermont.gov. But if there are restaurant owners that are not here, please spread the word on that as well. So
Awesome.
we want people to get the free money.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to cobble all this stuff together right now. I want to acknowledge too that we know that the gaps that we identify are going to be far beyond our ability as a state government to meet them all, but we're also working very, very closely. The Chief Recovery Officer I mentioned, Doug Fardon, is working very closely with the congressional delegation and their staff because we anticipate that, especially now with Hawaii, as horrific as that is, there should be enough political support in the Congress for a supplemental budget bill for the current federal fiscal year, specifically for emergency relief. And so we want to make sure we're as prepared as we can be to make as well-informed ask. Because as half-assed as Congress is,
I think that makes 3.
we still have to do our due diligence and present solid math and be able to demonstrate to them real needs. So that's another reason that we're anxious to find these gaps.
So the SBA money, you said within 2 weeks after approval, but the approval's pipe dream, that's 6 months. Sometimes.
They said to us this morning, now this is just what they're telling us, is that folks are thinking back to COVID and that's what they're remembering from COVID, but they said it's entirely different. This is SBA disaster. It's a totally different section of SBA. They're telling us that it is much faster. And so I would say, I would roll the dice, let's put a little trust in them. And
I already have the application.
okay, so they're telling us that it's much faster, that folks are seeing the money already. And right now, they're focused on the disaster portion of it, but they also have economic injury loans as well that, I'm sure folks are going to be interested in after this process as well if they haven't applied already for that.
Disaster SBA is different than the regular SBA
It is.
process.
Yeah, they have different, yes.
One comment just on the EIDL application is it didn't used to include a rate range, 4% to 8%. And I can understand why that would be, but the 8% is scaring some applicants away. If there's a way to get that, maybe it should be explained a little bit more. Because I think most people are going to qualify for the 4% when they submit, right?
Yeah.
I know you're not SBA, but do you know about that?
Well, what I understand is that yeah, you might end up in the 4% or the 8%. And it's the way the federal government designed this, right? And again, we don't have the strings to pull on that, but if they're not being clear enough, we can try to, I guess we're trying to push out their regs on this, their promotional materials. But I'm not sure if I'm getting to the heart of your question. Are you feeling like it's a little hidden, or?
It's just the 8% number without explaining, because what I've said, and I think it's accurate, is after underwriting, after they look at underwriting, they decide, SBA decides whether it's a lower rate, the higher rate, or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So the person still has the option of declining.
Correct. And you know, again, they could take the loan, use the 1 year of the no interest, no payments. If they qualified for the SBA loan, I would hope that they might be able to refinance with their own bank, because I suspect that the SBA is going to be pretty thorough in making sure somebody has the cash flow to pay it back. So if somebody, you know, felt that the 8% was not, or that they could get a lower rate, that they could, I'm not suggesting they absolutely can, I'm just saying they could.
Have you heard of somebody getting an SBA loan at 8%?
Yes. Oh,
No, I
that's a
haven't.
great point.
And that's kind of the point I made.
I mean, this morning we were talking 2.5.
Yeah.
You make a great point, and maybe that's what I'm hearing from you, is because they are saying it could be 8%. And there's sort of this narrative that if I have a really good credit rating, I'm going to end up in the 8%. But to your point, we're not hearing that.
He's seeing that yet,
So
but it's something to
that's
monitor.
something I could chat. We have connections with the SBA. We could chat with them about that and see if there's any way we could dial that in a little bit and get some clarity.
Is it?
Hold on. Yeah, we got one in the back.
Last week when I spoke to the SBA representative here in Hoover County, they said 23 business applications have gone in and 0 were approved. So I don't know if that's changed.
Did they?
It's not encouraging.
Did you get the feeling they had been denied or just hadn't
I just don't think it's.
been processed? Okay.
So we can definitely follow up on that.
Yes.
They don't answer to us, but they clearly respond to feedback. And if they are not responding to the governor's office, then perhaps they'll respond to the congressional delegation. And if they're not responding to the congressional delegation, perhaps they'll respond to the White House, with whom we have a excellent relationship.
I'll go if you guys are
Yes.
ready.
Keep it coming.
I was on a call with committee leaders, and I believe you were on that call with another person who I'm drawing a blank on, but you were talking about the SBA loan.
Okay.
Is applying for the SBA loan as a Vermont resident, the disaster loan, beneficial to the state to secure federal funding?
To my knowledge, there's no correlation between your application to the SBA.
They don't look at that as a need base. They say, oh my God, look at all these people that are applying for these loans.
No, we have other ways to determine, in fact, I should bring this up, but we have other ways to determine need and be able to filter that information in, like, we're using more 211 data, but we have been very, thoughtful about not overwhelming people with too many surveys, because there's a lot, there has been some confusion, for example, about people who reported with 211 thinking that they might have applied for something, right? And so our agency has been interested in knowing about the harm, the economic harm that perhaps you've all encountered, even though we don't necessarily have anything for the economic injury at this point. Maybe there would be, but at this point. But we have finally decided that it's information that we really want to have. Also, as Jason mentioned, we have the congressional delegation is working on our behalf. So our agency is going to be sending out a survey. So it makes us a little anxious because we don't want to overwhelm people. We try to keep it simple. Nate, I don't know if you're willing to share a little bit about what they can expect, like in timing and like how long it will take to fill it out.
So this is the survey where we're trying to collect
economic injury.
Economic injury. So accruing business loss, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, could you just give a little idea of when you think that
Yeah, I
might
think
go?
by next Monday, we'll have that kind of live and pushed out.
And like,
But I think the tricky part is it's not necessarily leading to anything definitive. We're just trying to collect the data so that we can tell the story.
and
The survey's pretty simple, but looking for like, over the course of the last month, what is your, revenue loss? So this is this isn't the physical damage, it's the economic damage to your economy.
And so to your point about the SBA, like we are not relying on that to make our asks to the congressional delegation to advocate on our behalf. We are trying to use other avenues to get to there. So again, I'm not trying to push you to the SBA because it answers questions for me. The only reason I was advocating for it here is like, if you have free money for a year to use, go for it. I just also don't want to get anybody into debt they don't want to be
Most
in.
everybody I've spoken to in the business community balks at the 8%.
Totally get it.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely check that out, because we have not, again, SBA this morning was like, everything is 2.5%.
I have totally forgotten, Brendan McNamara, town manager in Ludlow is here, and he was how many days on the job when all this happened, Brendan? 90 days.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he's been doing an awesome job and just working around the clock. And so anything you want to comment on?
It's all been said.
Thank you, Brandon. Hold on just a second, Wendy. Okay, Wendy.
I just want to add, to follow up to your surveys, just so you all know that we communicated as a team, like some of you in this room filled out the Department of Liquor and Lottery flood impact survey, right? So I appreciate the time you, filled that out, you let us know about your damage. You were just asking about physical damage. So we give that information to the Agency of Comprehensive Development, so they have that. And then Denise's team puts together a dashboard, right? So the information that we have is shared with our security. So we're not necessarily asking redundant questions. We were just trying to reach out to our licensees. And thank you for sharing the damage that you sustained. It's huge. It's so impactful to have that information. So I just wanted to share that we do talk and we know what we each other are doing, so.
Wendy reminded me, we have an intelligence grinder. We have an information system into which we feed all these sources of information, and it churns out data on how many impacted residents, type of housing unit, so there's multifamily, multi-unit, a scope of damage of that housing unit, business damage. Eventually it'll have like SBA loan, how many applicants in the region, so we can look at all this information on a statewide basis. Imagine what you were experiencing and something similar is happening in Montpelier, or something similar is happening in Barrie. You're not alone. There's a lot of political focus. I don't mean that in the campaign sense. There's a lot of government focused on response, and eventually our dashboard, most of it, looking at these, most of it will be available to you, so you'll be able to see what the data tells us in terms of scope of remaining challenges. So as we work some of our most complex cases, so as we work some of our most complex cases into what we hope will be a satisfactory resolution, we'll be able to track everybody will be able to see. You'll be able to see it, we'll be able to see it, everybody else will be able to see it, so folks can hold us accountable for the work that we have to do to help move folks forward. Unfortunately, we're trying to cover a lot of ground today, and we're just about out of time, but I know there was another question in the back.
What are you doing with residents who were not in a flood zone, houses were damaged, and applying to FEMA and getting a check for $5,000? Like, where's the state in that mix?
Like where is the state doing grant processes for individual homeowners? Besides the Vermont Community Foundation, like, you know, we're doing a ton of stuff, we're obviously doing a ton of stuff locally. And we are very, very fortunate. We have, we've had an abundance of money come in, but it is not even a drop of money for what's needed. Like, it doesn't even help. But I mean, I'm on the committee that looked at these applications, and I left that meeting, and I was just like, oh my God, it is so bad. So how do we, like, can you just tell us how we fix that? Like, where do we go? How do we find more money? I mean, I'm great at grant writing. I'm good at it. I've done it before, and I will make it happen.
So, just, do you mean folks that are outside of like a disaster so declared county, or you mean just folks that are outside of the river inundation areas? There's a lot of those. I mean, one of the unique things about this particular natural disaster is that in addition to river inundation, we had enormous damage from just runoff.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. The answer is we don't have a perfect answer right now, and we're trying to figure out how to assess, how to measure those gaps. We know that they're going to continue to exist, and then as we find them, we prioritize folks based on scope of need and their own ability to navigate the way forward. And it's nowhere near perfect. We think we're going to, I know we're going to continue to work with the Vermont Community Foundation. We're working on generating some additional revenue for them to allocate to help close individual homeowner gaps. We're working on a mobile home project right now that would have mobile homes both deconstructed and recycled at no expense to the individual homeowners, and then working with FEMA and through other means to develop a way to rehouse them in a similar type of housing unit. And but then for every problem that we think we're about to solve, we discover one that's significantly larger. And that's the phase of the process that we're in. And I wish I had a plan to present to you, but we're trying to find our way forward.
It's like an onion.
Sorry?
It's like an onion.
It is a little bit like an onion.
Are most homeowners reporting in so that you know that they've had damage? Like,
Yes.
you've seen a number
Yes.
of people getting?
About 4,900.
Okay.
We know their housing unit type. We know the number of people in the household. We know the age of people in the household. We know the income of the household. We have a very clear picture of the households that we're trying to address, and you know, I can give you not off the top of my head, but I can give you a regional number, give you a county number, give you a community number, all for individual residents who have been impacted. The only good news is that the number of people whose houses were damaged but remain habitable. Now, they may need a furnace before winter. They may need some sort of additional major repair. But the number of uninhabitable homes is going to be, we think, over the next few weeks, hopefully sometime next week we'll get down to this number, will be in the hundreds. And so when you think about it on a statewide basis, and you're dealing with, at this point, roughly 1,000 severely damaged homes, and we're working our way through those to really understand scope of damage and whether it's habitable or uninhabitable. And that number is slowly getting down to the most complex of the most complex cases, and then it'll eventually get down to the ones where it's like, we can't have a home here, that need to be moved through the buyout process. We expect all of that to clarify over the next 3 months.
I apologize, we need to go, but I want to hear a question, so would you be willing to just take it offline and book that as we're going out? Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we can go forward.
Well, we appreciate all your time very much, and please do stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.